I'm sure Grant did a great job. And this is part, we kind of have 4 talks going together. This is part 2 of the 4. So we'll talk source control now, and then we'll do some testing. And then I'm going to go sit down and relax. All right, let's get started. Am I late, Carly? I didn't hear the horn, so I didn't get the horn. All right, we'll let this you can't see it. It's working. It's coming. All right, what else is going on? Anybody got any interesting stories, interesting questions? No? How many people use source control? That's a depressingly small number of people. How many people use source control for their databases? About the same number of people. All right, let's start this. We have stuff here. Sorry, I had questions at the end of the last one. All right, this is working. We'll connect, let that run. Da-da-da-da. That's good. That's good. We need source control. There it is. There we go. It's quick setup. And I need to run desktop presenter. Is that right, Robert? All right. I'm getting there. Hold on. We're coming. We need this. Let's start this. Nope, I didn't want to start that. I want to start this. This. Am I in the wrong one? Hold on. There. All right. We live? Any color? Let's do this. Need more space. I'm getting old. I can't see anymore. All right. I think we're almost there. You ready? That's a nice seat. Look at that. You stand out. Good job. Almost as nice as this, actually. All right, so we got this. Can you see everything? This. I need that. There we go. Don't care about that. Am I late now? All right. I do apologize. I got waylaid at the other. All right, we can let this start up in the background. All right, so let's talk about source control. All right, I'm told I have to stay over here, so we'll see if this works. All right, so let's talk about source control, since most of you don't have source control for your databases, sadly. However, we are happy to help you with that. So here are our goals to kind of talk about a little bit about source control and how we might do it, and hopefully we'll get through all of this. We'll see. I'm Steve Jones. I started SQL Server Central. That's really the reason I'm up here, I guess. But I've been working with SQL Server since 1991, actually on OS 2, as both a DBA and developer. So I've had a lot of experience in different environments, different companies, industries, that kind of thing. Here's my blog and email and Twitter. Twitter's probably the best way to get a hold of me if you want to find me. All right, so depressingly few number of you use source control for your application code. Probably what is that, 30–40% of you. Which is sad. You should be using it there. About the same for database code. Now, there's all kinds of places on the internet that talk about this, and I've got all these quotes that come from different places, different sites, different times, where people talk about source control. And source control is really a lightweight process, but it should be a habit for all of you. It should be something that is just part of what you do in your job. We all make mistakes, we all have issues, we all are going to have times where we need second copies of our code, or we have to undo changes, that kind of thing. So we need to have source control implemented. And these days, we've got all kinds of free options for source control, so it's not even going to cost your company much in terms of resources. They're fairly easy to set up, fairly easy to implement, and certainly at Redgate, we have some tools for SQL Server that should make it very, very easy to use. Here's a great one from Troy Hunt. He's a security MVP down in Australia or New Zealand or somewhere. And this one I really like because source control really should be the basis for all of your code. It should be that one source of reference, so it's not your laptop, or it's not the integration server, it's not anything else. We always know what our code base looks like in source control. And not only that, we know how it's changed and what the versions are. And then Jeff Atwood has this great one as well. For those of you who don't know Jeff Atwood, he's one of the lead developers that started Stack Exchange and Stack Overflow. And they treat their database code just like the rest of their application code. They keep it in source control and keep track of it. So source control is all about providing you some insurance or risk. Most of us don't work in highly dangerous industries where we can't make mistakes. I apologize if some of you do work in an industry like this where you're not allowed to make mistakes. So we want to be able to make mistakes and recover from them. And really, source control is all about finding a new presenter, is reducing risk. It really is about reducing the risk that you can't build your software, that you can't roll back a change, that you can't deploy new changes. Source control gives us the capability to reduce the risk of issues as we move around. So, all of you are probably using source control. How many of you do this? None of you? How many of you, none of you have ever saved a file with 2 on the end or 3? You're all liars. Every single one of you has done this. Probably some of you did it today. Oh, we don't want to update Java, do we? We've had enough updates for the day, I think. Some of you might do this as well. Anybody do this for store procedures? Now, this is actually a valid way to rev your API. You know, we have datetime 2 and SQL Server. There are people that rev their API like this, where they do version 2, version 3, version 4, and that's valid. But if you're doing this because you're trying to test changes or you're not sure which way you want to go, this is the wrong way to do it. All right? You want to have consistency. Some of you probably do this. I've actually done this, where at the end of every day I have a process that zips up all my code and it sticks the Monday code in the Monday folder, the Tuesday code in the Tuesday folder, etc. And this works okay, as long as I don't have to go back more than 5 days. Right? After 5 days I have an issue. And as long as I have an easy way to figure out what I've changed in code. This doesn't allow me to easily do it, but it's better than nothing. It's better than just having the code out there and hoping my SSD in my laptop doesn't die. So let's look at getting started with source control. Let's see here. How many of you use SQL source control now? Is there anybody? Oh, quite a few of you. Oh, good. So those of you that don't, you can talk to all these people that love it, and I'm sure they have wonderful things to say about SQL source control. So I've got a number of databases here, as we can see. I've got all these different databases. I am actually going to take this database where I've got tables and I've got views and I've got stored procedures and all this stuff in there. And I want to put this in source control. All right? I've got data in here as well. If I look at something here, I've in fact got data. So I've got data in there as well. I've got lookup data and that kind of thing. So if I wanted to put this in source control, here's what I used to do. And I actually have had automated processes that did this in the past, where they would go through the SQL DMO objects or the SMO objects, and they would connect to SQL Server, and they would in fact, let me put this in this place where I can find it. Sorry, I can't think and walk at the same time. I can put stuff out there. Let's look at that folder. So there's nothing in here, but if I run this process, what's going to happen is it's going to script out all of my tables, my views, my stored procedures, my functions, everything that I've got, and it's going to stick all these files in here, hopefully. Oh, it will stick all these files in here, as I said, and these will be all of the source code that I have for all of my objects. There we go. So they're all here, right? And if I look at any of these, this is just standard SQL code that I wrote or a developer wrote or something else, but it's pulled out of the metadata of SQL Server. This is easy to script and do and get all these files. So I want to put that in source control. So I actually have source control running. I have Subversion running on this machine. I'm going to create a new folder. In this case, let's call this London. I don't care. Please don't use comments like that. Subversion is a centralized source control system similar to TFS. This Subversion is actually free and it's really lightweight, but everybody connects to a Subversion server and then they can check in their code. In this case, I can do something really simple, like let's add that folder in there. We'll do the whole thing. Da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. I'm not going to worry about the typo. And what this is going to do is it's going to make copies of all this code and store it in my Subversion database, in my Subversion version control system. Okay? Pretty easy, pretty simple. All this code is in there now, and if I look, I see all these files. They look like any other file that I have in there. That's simple enough to do, right? I have another project. Let's make another one here. Let's do it again. Do this. I'll make a second folder here. Where did I put this? I put it here, didn't I? Put it somewhere. There it is. Nothing in here. Now, I want to actually do this in a different way, and the Redgate product is built to make this really simple. So I've got this other database here. This is an exact copy of that database. I know because I restored it again. It's the same object, same data, all that stuff in there. I have the ability to just link this to Source Control and Management Studio. And in this case, over on the left, you can see I could use Subversion, I could use TFS, I could use Git, I could use Mercurial, I could use whatever I want to use, essentially. And then I put in this path. What's going to happen is our tool is just going to make this really simple so that I don't have to go in and out of my SSMS. In this case, I've got all of this code that I see listed here. If I look down here for each of these objects, I can see what the code is. The left side shows me what's on my system. The right side shows me what's in version control. Obviously, I don't have anything in version control yet. So if I commit this, what I'll find is that it's going to put all of these folders in here, which correspond to different types of objects, tables, views, stored procedures, etc. And then inside of each of these, I've actually got the code. So if I look at one of these, I have the code for that table. Same thing I did before. All right? All we've tried to do is make it a little bit quicker and easier for you to use. Now, why do we do that? Well, let's imagine I want to change something in this database. I want to change a stored procedure. Certainly, I could come down here and pick one of my stored procedures. Let's say this one, modify it, and say, let's add the address to this. I execute it, it looks good, I'm happy with it, I'm sure all of you do this. Now I want to put it in source control. Well, I have to actually save this file out. If I was in source control, what I really want to do is I make sure that I, in fact, take that procedure. I gotta figure out where it is now. There it is. And check it out. So if I were to pick it, I'd have to pick a place where I want to check it out to. Let's pick a directory I know I can find again. Da-da-da. Let's go here. And all I've done is make a copy of that file from my source control system. So if I look at this folder, I've actually got, did I check it out? Hold on. No. Yeah, check it out. Sorry, moving too fast here. I've got a copy of the stored procedure here. So I've made a change in Management Studio. I'd actually have to save it and stomp on top of that file. In this case, picking that folder and that file and say save it. Yes, I want to make a change. I save a copy of it. Now, it's not in source control yet. In my source control system, here it's changed. This is in my file system, and it's been marked. You'll notice there's a red mark on this file up here. That means that it's changed in my source control system. Just let me pop back open because nothing has changed here yet. So if I make this big and let's sort by revisions, nothing has changed here. But what I can do is I can check this folder, I can check this file in. So, where am I at? Here. Let's check this in. I do a commit, which means I want to take my changes and send them to source control. I I give it a comment, not for today, but 2 weeks from now when I need to look at this and figure out why I made a change, I want a comment in there. So once I do this, this is actually going to be committed and it's gone green here. So I can see that this has gone green. In my source control system, if I sort by revision now, I actually should have, let me refresh this. Up here, this revision has changed because of my commitment, and I've got the new code here, so my address code is in here, right? A little bit cumbersome, took me a little bit of time to do that. I got to remember to do things, but I have a better way to do that. And one of the reasons you want to have tooling is so that people are willing to stick things in source control and it doesn't become a hassle. So let's make that same change. Let's go here. I'm going to change to my database. So I'm changing my database. I'm going to run this exact same code here. Now, when I go to make a commit, I stay in Management Studio. This is our SQL source control add-in. It's doing the exact same thing I just did manually, where I save that file and then I check it in the source control. Here, I'm going to put a comment in there, commit this, and now when I go to this version and I go to store procedures, I'll see the commit as well. Subversion works by revving each commit with a new number. So I have unique numbers for every commit. And if I look at this code, I see the change. More importantly, and this works in both ways, I can see the logs of changes. So I can see the initial code and I can see the new code as well. And if I need to roll back a version, I need to see what changed, I can do that easily. If I need to do something like, what if I want to change a table? I want to alter a table. So let's check out one of these code. Let's close this. This is a common thing we all have to do. Let's change, let me find a table. So let's take blogs. So I'll check this out. Whoops. Let's put this in that same folder. Select, check it out. Yes, check it out. So I've got this table now. I want to change it. Is that code? What do I have to do? File open. Take this. Let's say I want to add, let's add a column. So let's say we're going to do the Twitter. Okay? I execute this, what happens? It doesn't work, right? Because I can't alter a table like this, right? How would I add this column? Anybody? Right? I'd have to sit here and do this, remove all this code as well. Add, there we go. What did I do, column? Sorry, can't think today. So, oh, I have an error. Well, that's not good. But in any case, I would have to run this code. I'm not going to try to fix that right now. But I'd save this, and I'd have to check it back in. So I'd have to come over here, and I'd have to find this. I could check it in here. I could go here and say, let's commit this. And say, I've added new field. I know there's an error in there, but in any case, when I look at my source control system, what I'll find is now I've just had that code that I checked in. And so if I have to rebuild this table, I have to know that I've got to, in fact, run both versions of this code. I've got to run all this code. The first one to get my create statement, I'd have to run this to do my alter. If I wanted to do this in my other database, you see which one I'm in here. So it's this database. So let's come down here to the second database. Exact copy of my first database. I can use the SSMS designer. I could certainly write the code. Now just leave those in the car. Save this. I don't have to worry about it. But if I were to come into my source control system and look at it, I should see, come on, wake up. Boy, this machine is not acting well today. I did change it here, right? No, this one should be linked to source control. Oh no, it died. Where did I lose my link? Did I link the other one? Let's see if I did some. I linked it here, didn't I? Yeah. I hate that. So let's do it this way. I'll just do it here, and hopefully I haven't ruined this talk. No, this is not a production system. We don't develop like this in production. So let's save this, close it out. So now, I've actually got the changes. Don't write comments like this would be bad. And I should see the change here. And there it is, right? Both these ways work. You know, whether I'm using tooling certainly makes it simpler, or whether I'm actually trying to use some kind of process where I just do manually check in and check out things, do file open and file save. They both work just fine. As a matter of fact, I've developed in both environments. And it's a question of building a habit to learn to just save your files and then check them back into source control. For those of you that are developers, you might do this already for some things where I need to put things into source control that aren't necessarily in Visual Studio or somewhere else. You just manually check them in. It's just a question of building that habit. And I've certainly had teams of 10 or 12 where everybody learned to check things in and out. And it works just fine. But tooling certainly makes it simpler and easier, and it makes it easier for everybody to have a smooth development process, and they never forget anything this way. So I would certainly encourage you to think about whether you build a process that's going to check out everything from, script out everything from your instance and check it into source control. Use a plugin like we have or something else. It's a great way to do it. Now, source control exists for all these reasons. They're all different things that help you reduce the risk in your software development process. Reduce the risk of you not being able to build your software, not knowing what versions are out there, or what kind of problems you have. When you build stuff in software, you certainly should have a set of rules on how you do it. This is from Case Scott Kelly, actually. He's got these great rules for how he works with databases. Now, he's a C# developer, and he's done a lot of experience, but he's learned that these things become important. The first one here is to never have a shared database. The reason you want to do this is I don't want to slow development. If I have to make changes to a table or a stored procedure and I'm testing something, I don't want to cause problems to anybody else. I don't want to break anybody else's code. So by not having a shared database, I have the ability to test code. I know some of you probably work with the development server and everybody hits the same database, but I really do recommend everybody develops in their own system. That way they can check it into source control and we can merge all the changes there. The other thing is to have a guaranteed place for all of your schema so that you know what revision everything is at. And the authoritative source becomes source control. That's really how you make sure that we know what we're going to deploy. So it doesn't matter what any developer does, doesn't matter what happens on any server where QA may test something. We always know in source control this is what we want to deploy. And then we always know it's in production because that's what's obviously running. And the last thing is to version your database. So that I know when I'm making changes and I'm going to deploy these changes for my application, I have a revision there. And in the keynote this morning, we showed you we had tagged the version and we were able to go back and look at that. That's really the best way to do this, is that you always tag the version of things in source control that you're releasing, and then you can always go back to it. If you need to do a bug fix, you don't have to interrupt development. I can just go back to that particular tag. Ideally, at the end of the day, this is what we aim for. This is how you build a very fast development pipeline, that every developer runs their own set of the application code and the database code, and then we merge everything together in an integration environment, hopefully using something like continuous integration. All right, any questions? I know I'm going fast. Yes, sir? So when I made that change in the object, how did SQL source control pick that up? It's actually doing a little bit of both. So you'll notice over here, and I know because I'm going fast, this is going, it's actually tagged a little icon into Management Studio. That's because it's looking through there and it's catching changes that we make. So it's aware of changes. This works whether we're sharing one database or I have my own database, it's still catching those changes. Once it's caught a change here, and let me make another one so that I can do this. I'm not going to change the table because that tends to just cause me issues. If I change the stored procedure, so let's go through here and add the other address column. Now, this will get picked up with a tag here shortly. It's not real time, right? It has to take a little time. But if I was waiting in a development environment, it actually just appeared there. It would pick that up. Now this is actually doing a comparison. So what's happening is we are looking at what's in source control, which in this case, over here, the latest source control version. So it gets the latest version from source control, the head or the trunk, and then it looks at what I have on the server and it gives me both versions. And so I have the ability here to see what I'm actually going to commit. So it's doing a little bit of both. It's polling as well as doing a comparison. So if you hooked up to an existing source control, hold on, because I'm going to do that in a minute, so you can see it. All right, where am I? Let's go back here. So in source control, we want to catch all of our code. We want to make sure that we get every single thing that we deal with. And actually, part of the DevOps movement should be that we also catch any operational changes we need to make to servers as well. So if I have anything like jobs, security changes, configuration changes, I want to capture those as well. But at the very least, I got to make sure I capture all of my data. Now, in this database, and I'm going to continue to go over here, I've actually got some lookup data. So if I go here and look at my countries, I've got all this data for countries. This is something that I probably want for my application that needs to migrate through environment. So in development, if we have a change of countries like, I don't know, somewhere in Europe, you're always changing countries, right? Some of these things split and combine, and we change them out. I want to capture that into my source control system. I don't want to capture things like orders or customers because those aren't really relevant between development and production, but things like this are. So I have the ability to actually capture this data. So if I were to do that, I can go ahead and link what we call static data or lookup data. So I know I've got things like this that I may want to capture. If I link those in, when I come to source control, it'll actually give me a commit of things that I want to capture here. And if we notice, it's actually giving me all the insert statements. So I'm capturing this data as well. So if this is something that I need to push through, I can put it in the source control. And then when I look at my data, I'll actually see all this data as well. So I see all the insert statements for all of my data. And then when I want to deploy that to another environment, my integration environment or my staging environment, I'm pulling out of source control, and that would include this lookup data. Now I can certainly do this manually. I could take all this data, however I wanted to script it out, whether I wrote these manually or I used a tool, and I could check this file into my source control system manually, and then I just have to suck it out and run it. But it is helpful to have automation for that. How do we use source control? The first one is really important, and this is the hardest part of the habit, is that you want to commit often. I don't commit every time I type a character. I don't necessarily commit every time I change an object. But once I've changed it and I've run a small test on it, and I'm sure that I think it works on my machine, right? That's a good test. I commit it to source control, and I do this often. And I don't worry about what I'm committing that much, because if we find out I need to change it later, it's just another commit. And I'm still going to just build that latest version. But if I have an issue, if I decide that I really don't want to cross-join in there, I can go back and find the previous version, restore that, rerun that, and then I have this history of, I have version 1, I have version 2 where I made a mistake. Version 1 goes back as version 3, and I can see, here's what I've done in the past. Check for changes often. This becomes important as well. I don't want to know every time somebody makes a change, but I do want to periodically get all of the code from other developers. For those of you that work in Visual Studio, you probably get either messages, notifications when things change, or you just do get latest periodically to get code. We can do the same thing here. And then I have the ability to, or I want to make sure that I use common names and patterns that people can use, or people understand, so that when we look at code, we always know how it works. And the last one is branch rarely, which I don't want to cover now, but I'll talk about it in a minute. Ultimately, this whole thing with source control is about building teamwork, making teamwork work better and smoother. And teamwork really encompasses a few things. One is communication, and then the other is collaboration. Out of curiosity, how many of you have a stand-up, a daily stand-up, or you do like Scrum Agile type stuff? So those are great tools, but I don't love stand-ups. I think some of you are probably like me, where you go to the stand-up meeting and you don't really care what everybody else is doing, because I worry about my work and I don't care. But I do care about your work when it affects my work, or when we're going to touch common objects or common methods or areas in the code. And source control allows me to do that. We actually have customers that will perform their stand-up like this, where they'll go into Management Studio and they'll pop it up on the screen, and they'll pull up the history for the database or for an object. And then in the morning, we just go through the list of changes from yesterday. We look down, I have the dates here, and we go down and we say, all right, Steve, what did you change? Why did you do this? Bill, why did you change this? We can see the comments. We have the ability to run through a meeting quickly and say what has been affected in the database. This is actually a great way to keep track of what's going on. If you're like me, somebody asks you what you did yesterday, you might not remember. You certainly might not remember everything that you changed or touched. But this allows you to very quickly go through it if you've centralized all of your code. The other one is we want to coordinate what we're doing, which means we have to share code in some way. On the database, it is easier if we have a central database, but it isn't always foolproof, because that means that anytime somebody makes a change, it affects everybody else. We don't always want that. But source control allows us to decouple those changes slightly so that I can work in my own environment and test things and work on my own code without somebody else breaking my code. So let's look at doing what you just asked, set up a new database. So let me create a new database. Let's make this London. I'm going to break something here. There we go. I create a new database. Now imagine that I'm doing this on a different machine. So I get a new developer, they come in, we create a new database for them. So I've got this new database here, and I've got source control here. What I can do is send this developer this URL. And when they link this together, what we're going to actually do is go look at source control and look at their database, and we're going to find that there's tons of stuff in source control on the right, and there's nothing in their database. Okay. Sorry, I'm running late. So if I can see all the objects, and if I get latest, what we'll find is that all of that stuff is going to come into my database. And so it becomes very easy for you to set up a new developer. Or maybe more importantly, if I've got branches or tags for release, and I decide I have a bug fix in version 1, and I'm working on version 2, I create a new database, I stick the tag in here, and I pull back version 1 into a database where I can work and make a bug fix, and I don't affect development on version 2. And then I, of course, have to merge those changes in. But now if I look at this database, I should see I've got all these objects in there that existed in the other databases, and obviously they show up as changed here. But not only do I have the objects, I actually should have, if I've done this right, all the lookup data as well. So it's moved across. So it becomes very easy for me to set up a branch or a new developer and work with everybody else. If I make changes in this environment, so let's take my favorite store procedure here, and I go, well, that guy didn't have all the address, wants to make a change, commit that. That change will be there. If I was on a different machine or a different laptop and I'm in this guy's world and I come look, Oops, I picked the wrong one. I'm up here, right? Here's that change I just made. And of course, he can easily go, well, you did that wrong because that isn't the full address. Let's come up here, let's change that again and say, you in fact forgot something. Let's do country, and what else we put in there? Email and phone. Okay, I can make this change. These are commits that I have. I can push in it. Commit that in. Now, what happens if, meanwhile, we're working along and this guy says, or girl, hey, I realize that that's not correct. I need countries as well. What am I going to see if I go to commit these changes? I actually have a conflict here. If I look here, one person made a change, another person made a different change, and I'm trying to put these in source control. Okay? In the past, if we were storing code in a file system, what would happen? Overwrite. Last person wins. In this case, I'm well aware of what's going on now. And I have the ability to, I can do a keep mine, which probably you would do, right? Keep mine. Some people would say, well, let me take theirs, and then I'll merge my change in. Or I can actually use merge tools. In this case, I've got a great merge tool where I can say, let me actually just say, I want to insert this code in there from this person. Maybe I actually want to say, you know, I need phone, home here as well, and save this. And actually, I think I broke that with the wrong code. SQL's invalid. But I could actually use a merge tool here to resolve my code if I had something that was conflicting and didn't allow me to do this. I'm going to ignore this change. I'm going to take theirs because I know that that's correct. And I don't have to do it. That would just get latest from them and overwrite my change. But I can go within there back and forth, committing code, having it go to source control. The next person picks it up. If we have changes that conflict with each other, we're aware of it, and we can make the decision on how to deal with it rather than losing any amount of work there. Okay? All right. Any questions before I go any further? Good. I don't have much time. All right, branching. How many of you branch for development? A few of you? My philosophy has always been, I only branch on release. I do not branch for features. I don't branch to test things very often because what I'm then doing is I'm creating a ton of work for merging things back. What I actually prefer to do is I branch on release. The rest of the time I work within the trunk. And if we have conflicting changes, we have to work it out with the developers at our stand-up meeting or something else. But we capture all of that code all the time in the trunk. Now, you certainly can branch for other reasons, and I'm not saying you're right or wrong. That's just been my philosophy. Branching works well in source control because I can keep track of things. And just like I set up this other database, this database, wherever I put it, this database, I could point this to a branch. I could point this to anything else that I have out there. You'll notice that I have multiple copies of things here. So I've got all these different URLs. I could pick a database and copy to any one of these. If I create a branch in Subversion, it'll create a copy of one of these folders where all the current versions, and that would be a branch. And I could just link to that branch then and have the ability to go through that. If you do want to see that later out front, somebody can show you. I don't want to go through it now because I'll run out of time here. But branching allows me to just keep doing development if I have a reason to branch. Certainly on release, you should always branch. Because if I'm working on version 2 of my code and we find a problem in version 1, I do not want to push version 2 out faster. I need to make sure version 2 works. But I do need to be able to fix version 1. By having a branch, I can go back to version 1, get that copy of the code, and deploy it. All right, branching, I'm going to skip that for now, but I'll show you. Best practices here. Please use version control. Far too few of you said you would do it. Git, Mercurial, Subversion are free. You can go download them today, install them on any machine, and work inside of your company for free. If your Microsoft Shop TFS works well, if you pay for licenses, there's SourceSafe. Please don't use SourceSafe. There's other things out there, Perforce, CVCS. There's other things out there that you could use, but please use some kind of source control out there, and then train your people so that they know how to use it. It's not very hard. Whether you want to do manual check-ins, whether you want to use a plugin like we have, please, please, please train your people and use the source control there. But automate as much as possible if you can, because it makes a big difference to everybody using this code. The last thing is, the second part of this talk, where some of you may have seen Grant talk, is the basis for trying to do something like continuous integration, where I get fast feedback and I know if my code is good, really requires source control. You have to have a source control system of some sort with which to build software. So this is this part of it. The building part we talk later. I'll talk about testing next if you want to come. And then Grant will talk about this whole thing together later on. The whole idea is that I want to be able to take this deployment package and build it. To do that, I need a place where I can start from, and that's source control. I need a place where I can end up, that's production, but I can build this package, and then I can feed it through this loop very quickly. So I can get it to test, and if it doesn't work in test, it goes back to development, and we can make changes. But if it goes through test, we can get it to pre-production quickly, and eventually get it to production as fast as possible. So I don't have people waiting months and months and months or years for changes. All right, hopefully I've covered these goals. Again, if contact information, if you want it, the slides will be up on the SQL in the City site, so you can download them from there. I think that's it. Sorry, I'm a little frazzled. It's been a long day already. But I'll take questions if you got them. If not, I think lunch is going to kick off here shortly. And I hope you guys have a great day at SQL in the City. Thanks for coming.